All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. It is 2 o'clock. Hello and welcome to our March Charter Directors meeting. We're glad to have you here today. It is a short meeting, so we'll just get right into it. If you're joining us later on a recording, hello and welcome to you as well. From our office, we've got Lisa Cooper here, and she's got a few announcements for us. So we'll turn some time to her, and then I'll go through the rest of our agenda of what to expect today.
Great. Hi, everybody. Thank you for giving me some time, Marie. I just wanted to, I wanted to say thank you to all of you that had your BAs come to my BA meeting that I had at the end of February. I appreciate that. I had a really good turnout. However, I did not have as good a turnout with my survey. So I'm going to make one more plea to you to please just encourage your BAs to take the survey. It is anonymous, so I don't know which ones have taken it or not. So if you could just please ask them if they would go ahead and take that. It should only take a few minutes. I'm going to put the link into the chat so you will have it. But that's pretty much all I wanted to say is just thank you to those that did take the survey. And like I said, I had a wonderful turnout. So if we could just get them to turn out for the survey, that would be awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks, Marie.
Thank you, Lisa. All right. Well, as I said, we've got a short meeting today. We have Amber Brewer here, and she's going to be talking about some resources with the science of reading. So we'll be starting with her, just so that you know what else to expect. We do have School Land Trust coming this afternoon for some more updates. And then we have our monthly director training from EdDirection. And so should be a nice afternoon. And we will turn the time over to Amber for the next part of our meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me and allowing me to come and share a few minutes of your time. Thank you, directors, for all that you're doing and supporting students in your schools. And I know it's a very busy time of the year. My name is Amber Brewer, and I am the manager of specialized partnerships at EdConnective. It sounds very similar. And I'm here to talk to you today about a partnership that we have through the USBE with USBE to provide support to leaders like you in charters and LEAs across the state, and literacy directors as well across the state. In addition to being the manager of specialized partnerships, I am an EdConnective executive coach, and that'll make more sense in a moment if you haven't yet had the opportunity to become familiar with us. EdConnective, at our core, we are a company that believes that every student thrives by facilitating exceptional educator growth. And so we, through that vision, we offer exceptional access to one-on-one coaching for educators at virtually all walks of their educational journey, from pre-service and para-educators all the way up through superintendents. And so we are excited to talk to you today about our partnership that we have with the USBE. As many of your colleagues in Utah that I have talked to, and many of you may have grappled with this question in recent time, or could be grappling with it now, or will have to grapple with it soon. What's after letters? Letters is such a wealth of knowledge, of information about how the brain learns to read, and it's a lot to process. But ultimately, all of that time, all of that energy, all of those staff resources that are invested in gaining the knowledge that Letters has to offer, it's in order for it to really impact students, is something has to be able to be done with it. And that's where we come. The Utah State Board of Education has partnered with us to provide one-on-one targeted consultative coaching support for directors like yourself, or leaders who are responsible for supporting the implementation of Letters in their charters or districts. And what that means is that we are able to support you on an ongoing basis through one-on-one consultative coaching sessions. And we'll talk about more about what that looks like specifically in a moment. But I did want to touch on what's the why? Are we in Utah? What's our why for being in Utah? And what's the why behind this partnership? Well, at the premise, it's SB 127, right? Like that has created a lot of opportunities for shifts or challenges in different instructional approaches, but at the minimum, it's created opportunities for continued development. And our why specifically is to provide one-on-one support to leaders and provide so that they can continue to provide high quality professional learning to implement and sustain incredible literacy instruction within their school. So when we talk about like this one-on-one consultative support for professional learning, this isn't just about creating a workshop necessarily. This is about what are the systems I need to put in place to support my staff, provide professional learning to my staff to actually make these highly effective literacy practices happen so that they are reaching students. I would like to note that this partnership is fully funded by the USBE for all eligible LEA charter literacy leaders. This does not come out of any school's individual budget. This is something that has already been paid for in partnership with the USBE, and it's made available to you or your designee or your literacy director as needed to fit your unique needs of your school. So how do we help? Some of the things that we're able to provide in our one-on-one consultative coaching sessions and partnerships is we are able to provide that individualized and responsive coaching specifically to support implementation of science of reading. We're able to consult on those awesome strategic plans and change management plans that many have already created or are in the process of creating. With a directive, we're able to offer support with the creation of training resources and materials, like through those consultative sessions, and even provide like advising and reflection on deploying the available resources that you already have. For us, we have a few numbers we like to highlight in talking about this. Since we started this partnership in May of last year, we have been able to have coaching partnerships with 100 unique LEA leaders. So that means we've been able to provide one-on-one coaching to over 100 other leaders like you in Utah. Those leaders come from 27 different districts, 27 different charters, and the 3 other are 2 service centers and the USBE. Total, this was as of about a week and a half ago, we had hosted 293 individual coaching sessions. So we're really excited about the numbers that you see here and what we've been able to offer to other leaders just like you and the support that they've been able to access. So what does it actually look like? Like you've heard me talk a lot about this support. So let's talk about what a typical coaching partnership would look like for you if you were to determine you want to participate. You get matched with a coach who is aligned to you, who based off of our survey that you complete is aligned to your unique needs, your availability, your levels of experience so that they can understand kind of your unique perspective. You start with an introductory meeting with that coach and you set a personalized goal for your partnership. And then throughout the partnership, you go through this ongoing like repetition for each meeting that you have with your coach. You'll submit an artifact. Sometimes that artifact is a reflection. Sometimes that artifact is an upcoming meeting agenda. It's between you and your coach, whatever works with your goal. The coach looks at the artifact, provides some identifies some feedback, and then in the meeting you guys take steps to work towards the next highest leverage step related towards your goal, and the whole process repeats. Typically partnerships last for about 90 days, so you have access to coaching through a consultative coach for a total of about 90 days. We're currently about 30 days into our spring coaching partnerships, but it is not too late to sign up if you are interested. Before we move along, I did want to spotlight one of our partnerships with the literacy director from Odyssey Charter School. She has been a participant in 3 consecutive cohorts now, summer, fall, and spring of 2024. This is the goal that she had in fall of 2023. And her goal was to support teachers with implementing science of reading in a way that is rigorous and in alignment with their school's unique charter. At the start, you can kind of see the trajectory along this line of how our partnership progressed. She had noticed a general move away from rigorous early literacy instruction and walkthroughs after the completion of letters. Based off of that, she collected data through conversations and surveys around how her teachers were viewing rigorous literacy instruction and what it should look like to try to figure out what was kind of happening at the core. We'd had all this great letters training. What's happening? And from there, she was able to realize that she started to make a plan with how to bring about the perceptions of staff of a norm between what they had learned in letters and what they perceived, what the charter was calling them to do. And she normed with her other building leaders through observation and assessment. And then towards the end of the partnership, like her next step after this was working with her literacy team to use data to determine the goals and next steps for the whole staff and what they needed to do next in implementing effective literacy instruction. And so we appreciate Rachel giving us permission to share this out. And she's been an exciting participant in our 3 cohorts. And it's been awesome to watch her story grow over the course of the cohorts. Just a few pieces of data we like to celebrate is at the end of each partnership, each participant gets an opportunity to give feedback. So we are a feedback-driven organization. And so we take every piece of feedback intentionally and try to look at what can we do to better meet the needs. And after summer's cohort, 100% of the participants felt that responded to the survey felt that it had had a positive impact on their well-being as a leader. Specifically, one example of that is somebody shared that their coach was really helpful in providing guidance for helping them organize their principal learning walks for the 29 elementary schools that that particular coach supported. That, of course, was in a district, but all the same, it's that targeted one-on-one support. I loved having a thought partner. I loved having someone outside of my school to bounce ideas off of. Those are things we hear very, very often. We are so excited that we are also able to offer USBE credits for participation in this one-on-one consultative support. So more information is going to be coming through the USBE listserv and other channels soon about how to access those credits, but that's an exciting development we've been able to get into place this spring so that for participants who engage in coaching with us, it's some of the best professional learning you'll ever get. Now you can have credit towards your license renewal for it. So we're really excited about that opportunity. And as I'm coming to a close, hopefully you're thinking, this sounds interesting. I would like to learn more. Or, maybe not for me, but for my literacy teacher. If you're interested or you know someone who you think should be interested, or you have a designee that you're like, yes, I want them to be able to have this type of support, we have a landing page that you can go to, and that landing page will allow you to do 2 things. You can sign up for, you can sign up on the interest form, and this just lets us provide you with upcoming updates and communications about partnerships, or you can sign up on the matching survey. And that matching survey is the magic link that's going to let us know that you're ready to be matched with a consultant coach or your designee, and we will get them matched pretty much as soon as, not within 24 hours usually of receiving their matching survey. And we'll send you some additional resources. Also, if you just would like to learn more or you have questions and you're like, I have unique questions and I would like those answered before I sign up for something, no problem at all. I am here to help. My email address is abrewer@edconnective.io. And I just put that in the chat, and you can reach out to me directly, and I'll be happy to answer questions via email, text message, video chat, regular phone call, all great options. And I'm happy to help you learn more or answer your questions, whatever that may be. And that is the end of my presentation for today. I very much thank Marie for allowing me to come on and to speak to you today. And I hope to be able to hear from some of you and work with some of you very, very soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amber. I don't see any questions right in chat right now. So you've got your contact information there. So hopefully people will be in touch. I do see one there. Will we get presentations? Amber, do you want to send that to me and I can push it out to the directors, or what would
Yeah,
be
sure.
easiest for you?
Whatever works for you, Marie. I can pull down a copy and get that sent to you, and you can send it out to them. That would be fantastic.
Perfect. Well, let's plan on that then. So yes, we will send out presentations. All right. Well, thank you and have a good afternoon, Amber. Moving right along then, we have Paula here from School Land Trust. So Paula, we will turn the time over to you.
Thank you. I will share my screen. There it is. I'm Paula Plant. I'm the director of the School Children's Trust section at the State Board of Education. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. And you're used to having Holly address you about School Land Trust, and she is out today doing compliance review and trainings on the road and has asked me if I would present to you today. So first thing we want to do is really is to say thank you. Oops, went too far. Holly creates these little congratulation images through AI. She types something in and that's how we get this funny looking little cow. But she likes to do that when we want to say thank you to people, and we do want to thank you and give a bit of a shout out to those who assisted us on the working group that tried to assemble and say, what are we not doing that we should be doing to support charter schools? What would be a better process? How do we better communicate? And it's resulted in really some great changes, and want to say thank you to all of you, because we have 99% of the charter schools have completed their final reports. And that is a huge improvement from any prior year. So we want to say thank you for that. So on to the next thing. This is kind of our quick timeline for the year. You're currently implementing your current school plan, have just finished your final report. And so the next step is the LEA assurance that was emailed to you on March the 4th. If any of you don't have it, please let us know and we can resend it. For clarification, this is not something that you will enter on the School Land Trust website. Like everything else, is actually a Qualtrics survey. If you have questions about that, let us know. But the LEA assurance is just simply an assurance on your part that you've completed the requirements in the law to receive funding from the School Land Trust program. And we will be watching for that before we start reviewing and doing the final and finalizing the upcoming school plans. So then that's the next thing, is the upcoming plans, and they are due April the 15th to be submitted on the website. For clarification, because there's been a little bit of confusion, as I understand, the board rule requires that they be submitted on the website by April the 1st. And we're still recommending that April the 1st is probably the best date for the schools. But since we're in a new process this year, having business officials do the secondary approval, and they haven't done that ever before, we have extended that deadline for 2 weeks past the April 1st deadline, so that they're on the website ready for the final review by April the 15th. I hope that's clear and that we don't have continuing confusion about that part. With that final report, with that upcoming school plan, there is a requirement for a council signature form. Now, this is only needed if you have established a process and assembled an elected council other than the board. And just as a bit of tidbit information, I thought it might be interesting for you to know that this council signature requirement initially came from Brian Bowles when he was superintendent at Davis School District. Felt like it was important for principals and councils to make sure that everybody was on the same page about who needs to be involved in preparing a school plan. And that's where this actually came from. And it's been part of our program ever since. It used to be that these signatures were collected on our website, and that turned out to be kind of a fire drill, I guess, of some sort, to try and get people to sign the form instead of it being a meaningful experience. And so that process has changed just a little bit. And that is that an LEA will create their own form, and they will keep the form, and it will be created in a way that works best for the LEA. It can be a paper form. It can be an online form that parents or the council members sign online. We do have a template that's included in the resources at the end of this presentation that you can use to help with that preparation or ask us questions. We're happy to be helpful. The thought process is at the meeting when the council signs off on the plan that's been prepared, they would also sign a form that says, basically, I have been involved in implementing the School Land Trust program this year and in preparing the one for the next year. This is not them signing a form again, approving the plan. They may have voted against the plan, but what they're saying is it's a report to the board to say, this council that you assembled is actually doing the work. They're actually involved in the processes. So that's the purpose of that. This form needs to be kept for 3 years, and you would be asked for it in an audit or a compliance review. And you've seen these timelines, I know, several times over the years. So just in summary, what we should be about now is completing that LEA assurance. If you have a council, they will be meeting, discussing, considering the data, determining the greatest academic need. Do we want to continue doing what we've been doing? Do we need to tweak that? Do we need to go a different direction? What are our student needs for the coming year? And preparing a plan. And then whether or not you have an elected council or the board is the council, at that point in time, the plan needs to be approved, entered online and approved. You will now be asked for a date when the board did the approval. And then the last piece is for your business administrator then to look at the plan and do that approval at that time as well. I am understanding that in many charter schools, the director or the principal and the business administrator tend to enter it together. And if that's the case, then you can do it all right at the same setting, have the plan entered and submitted, and then the business administrator can log in under their login and do the approval. However you want to handle that is great. And that's really all that I have, unless there are any questions. Holly will be addressing with you in the coming months, just a discussion about, so, okay, we've got our plan submitted, everything's good to go, what's next? And just out there on the horizon, if you have an elected council that gets elected in the spring, then you'll want to be considering, a time frame for that to happen. And the last thing to consider is we have a template where you can enter all of the information that needs to go into a final report. Lots of times, especially if there are administrative changes, the person who comes on and is new has no idea how the plan was implemented, right? They're brand new, they weren't there, they don't know. But if you have completed that information in a template, whether it's a new person or whether it's you, they can simply copy paste that information over into the final report when it becomes available in 10 months, right? It's a long time to remember. So that's another thought process that you might consider for the spring. And that's all I have, unless there are any questions. I guess there's...
Paula, there's a couple in chat. Would you like me to read those for you?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Rachel asks, when are the LEA assurances due after we've submitted the 24-25 plan?
Okay, so the LEA assurance just needs to be submitted before we do a review. We can't do a review until we have an assurance that you've completed your responsibilities. And one of the questions on that is if the council signature form has been completed. So when we have that, then we'll start the review of the plan. So it would be April 15th, the same as the due date for the council for the upcoming school plan.
Then the next one, Amy was wondering, can first-year charters receive land trust funds?
That are the charter schools that are opening starting in the fall can receive trust lands funding. You need to go through the process. I think maybe not everyone has been notified by CURA, but the calculations for new charter schools have been considered in the distribution for next school year. And you would go through the same process of entering a plan and going through the approval process. Yes.
Perfect. That's all the questions in chat right now.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Marie. Thank you, all of you. And thank you so much for your help in making this transition. We just feel like things are going so much better, and so grateful for your communication. Thanks for your help.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paula. And
Okay.
congratulations, everyone, on that 99% number. That's very exciting. So,
Thank you.
awesome. Well, then we're at our last part of our meeting, so we will turn the time over to Ed Direction for our director training.
Perfect. I am going. If it's okay, if you will stop sharing your screen, I'm going to steal it so I can share ours, Paula.
Yeah, oh, there it is. Sorry. There. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Excellent. All right. Well, we are super excited to be here with all of you guys for our March session. Just a quick thumbs up. Marie, can you see our screen?
Yes, we can. Looks good.
Beautiful. All right. Just want to make sure. I can find myself going off on a tangent and everybody's not seeing what I'm seeing. All right. So we are super excited to kick off today. Today we are talking about positions of control and a framework called Open to Learning Conversations, which is a great strategy to help facilitate us towards that open or the positions of control theory that we're going to dive into today. So as we dive into it, I know our faces are fairly recognizable to you guys now, but I'm here, Katie Hurst, and I'm also here with my colleague, Charlie Lyons, who you guys have heard from a few times this year already, and we're super excited to be here. As we dive into this, our learning intentions for today are one, just to explore the 5 positions of control, and for us to consider this connection between these positions of control and the science behind human behavior. We've talked a lot about the science behind human behavior this year, and so connecting these together is fantastic, and we'd love to point those out. Our second learning intention is just for us to become familiar with this framework, Open to Learning Conversations, as it's a tool that will help us move towards those 5 positions of control theory, namely the facilitator position, which you're going to learn about today. And then our third one is just for you guys as leaders of schools to consider how you guys might implement this new knowledge with your faculty and your staff, and how it might make your school a little bit better as we move forward. Our success criteria are one, to recognize how the positions of control show up in our schools every day, how they shift themselves and how we can use these with our staff to manage our schools, and how we can kind of shift our roles to this facilitator role if we're not there already. Our other learning intentions are one, just to identify some best practices tied to the open to learning conversations, consider how we can leverage this new learning to support our growth as leaders and our staff, and then just to have this learning guide that you guys can lean back to and learn from and use as a guide as we move forward through this learning and beyond. And with that, Charlie, I'm going to pass it to you to talk about our brief operating agreement.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Katie, for reviewing those kind of learning goals for the day and success criteria. As we have in every other meeting so far, just wanted to point everybody back to our initial operating agreement that we started together. It seems like quite a while now. We're old friends at this point. And that is that we all agreed when we decided we were going to learn together this year that we would focus on our learning, that we would actively participate when asked to participate, and that we would be present and very open in the moment. So just advanced thank you to everybody for continuing to live up to our brief operating agreement as we go through our learning today. All right. You want me to hit the agenda, Katie?
Sure, go for it.
All right. You can, I don't have to necessarily read this to you guys, but you can kind of see just how we're going to divide up our hour together. About half of it will be spent on the positions of control, then about 20 minutes on how that connects to learning conversations and being open to learning conversations. And then, as Katie mentioned earlier, just wrapping up with some practical next steps and how you can apply this information to being the best leader that you want to be.
Excellent. We want to point you guys to your learning guide, and I'm going to go ahead and put a link into the chat as well as also show you, just like in our last sessions, we've got this fantastic learning guide that's got resources for all of everybody to utilize today and beyond in the future. So I'm going to copy this link and put it into the chat. We do have, you'll notice these are bookmarks. So as we're going through it, if you want to jump down to a specific section, you can just click on the This Is Us covenant, click on the bookmark. It'll take you right down there for that. So you can do that. And then you'll always know if we're tying it back to the learning guide by looking at your screen. And if you've got this handy little book and pencil in the top right-hand corner, there'll be a number underneath. That'll be the page number that our learning guide will be on. So just wanted to point out this resource that we have for everybody, for you guys to be able to utilize that. And again, I'm going to put that link into the chat right now. So if you want to go ahead and open that up, you are more than welcome to do that. And with that, I'm going to push us forward back to our reminder of student-centered leadership. As a reminder, we focused all of our sessions this year around this idea of being student-centered leaders through this Vivian Robinson's work and thinking about how are we going to reach our ultimate goal of high quality teaching and learning, because that's why we're all here. So as we go through all of this, we've been focusing on two main things. One is her leadership capabilities of building relational trust throughout the course of the year, and two, the leadership dimension of leading teacher learning and development. Because as we remember, it's got one of the highest effect sizes of affecting student learning in our buildings from a leadership perspective and role. So as we move forward, we just want to remind you all that everything is tied back to the students and having the student-centered leadership. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Charlie to dive into positions of control.
All right. So we hope that as you think about student leadership, the information we've been sharing throughout our sessions together on human motivation, human behavior, and why humans do what they do has been helpful. Hopefully everything that we've talked about is been enlightening and helped you think about your leadership style and the way that you do things within your organization to get the most out of your people, to get them engaged, get them excited, get them doing the things that they do. So today we're going to continue to go into that a little bit further. I believe the next slide hits the review of the brain, and you guys have seen this already, but obviously knowing how the brain works and knowing how that central unit in our system impacts everything else that's going on in our system is a big piece of human motivation, is a big piece of human behavior. And your leadership style and the choices you make as a leader do impact the way that those people around you's brain is functioning, whether there's oxytocin flowing, as we've talked about before, and the executive brain is working where people can learn and be creative and be collaborative, or if people are walking through the organization more on that instinctive brain in the back with their amygdala hijacked and the fear hormones triggering. Obviously, as leaders, we want to be moving that energy to the front of the brain. And we hope to be able to do that today as we learn together and as we connect together. In fact, one of the ways we're going to do it today, I'm very excited, is watching a couple movie clips. So if you happen to have any popcorn nearby or in your office, now would be a great time to grab that popcorn and get ready, because we do have a few pretty exciting movie clips that kind of took me down memory lane a little bit. Several of them are a little bit of a throwback movie. So hoping to get your prefrontal cortex going today, A, with the learning, hope to make it very relevant, and B, maybe with some fun movie clips. Go ahead, Katie. We did mention, like I said, the leadership styles. This is a slide that we've seen before, but just as a reminder, as we move into the positions of control, the ways that we lead and the behaviors that we exhibit can either get that oxytocin firing or get that cortisol firing. If you'll click to that next chart, Katie. These behaviors that you see on that controller end, like excluding, judging, withholding, criticizing, punishing, these are things that we know fire that instinctive amygdala and that fear hormone that kind of locks people up, compared to being a facilitator and moving into that leadership role where we're including everybody, we're valuing their opinions, we're setting up systems where people can share their ideas and information, we're asking lots of questions, you're collaborating, you're celebrating and empowering. That's kind of what we want to move into. So to kind of double down on this information, we're going to look at a theory that William Powers developed when he was doing all of his research on human motivation and human behavior. And if you remember, William Powers is actually a scientist, right? So when I use the word theory, this isn't a research-based theory. This is a science-based theory, meaning it has been proven in scientific labs. It's gone through the rigorous sort of level of scrutiny that it takes to be known as a scientific theory. That was an important thing to note, is that Powers' information, when it's being utilized by people, it is actually scientific information that's being utilized. So we're going to dive into a framework that was created by a lady by the name of Diane Gossin, who took this scientific theory and started focusing on how do we try to motivate other people to do what we want them to do. As leaders, we all know that we're trying to motivate. I'll use the word motivate, even though she used the word control. We're trying to control other people sometimes to do what we want them to do. And sometimes we know we have that control. And sometimes we don't have that control. And what Gossin learned is the ways we try to control other people, some of them have a positive impact, and some of them actually have a negative impact on those that we're trying to lead and on those that we're trying to control. So not only on the brain in the moment, but also can have some long-term impact and some long-term legacy impact, both in a positive way as well as in a negative way. So if you'll click, Katie. So the ways that she summarized these positions of control were in 5 categories. And I want you to think, as I read these categories, maybe where you see yourself falling as you try to lead or control other people. You can think about this personally and maybe the ways that you try to lead or control family members or spouses or friends, or you can think about it professionally in the ways that you're trying to lead and control others. This is some notes and things that are captured in your note catcher, as you see in the little indicator, the learning guide. There's a bunch of notes on all of this stuff, so don't feel like you have to write all of this down, but feel free to take a glance over at that as we're going through these different positions of control. So the first one is the Punisher position. That a lot of times we try to control other people or lead them or get them to do what we want to do by offering certain punishments or certain rewards based on us getting the behavior that we want out of people. Another way we try to control a position that we take sometimes is the guilter or the shamer. Maybe if we guilt people enough or send enough of a guilt trip to people, we'll be able to get the behavior we want out of people. Another position that you may identify with, you may not, is the enabler or the buddy or the friend or the person that rescues. I know when I was a head basketball coach, this is one that I fell into all the time with my players because I wanted them to be successful basketball players. I wanted myself to be a successful coach. So I thought maybe I could just rescue them and enable them and buddy them, and I could get them to do what I needed them to do. Then there's the position of a manager. And, you know, a lot of times as leaders in schools or as leaders of charter organizations, we think of ourselves as a manager of other people. This is a not negative role. The first three are colored yellow, you notice, because those three are actually going to have a negative impact on those that we're trying to lead. And we're going to dive into that a little deeper in a second. But then you move into the manager, you're not having a negative impact on people, but you may not be getting the most out of them. The most that we get from people is when we choose to position ourselves as what's called a facilitator. And so we're going to take a dive at the end into the facilitator role in hopes you can kind of find some ways to navigate up to that facilitator role to fully get the most out of those that you're trying to lead. So one by one, we're going to go into these a little bit. Katie, if you'll go into the Punisher role first. We can probably all think of somebody in our life that has tried to assume this position. Maybe if I shock somebody enough or scare them enough with a certain punishment, then I can get them to do what I want them to do. Or the opposite, maybe if I give them enough candy, if I reward them with enough cash, then I can get them to do what I want them to do. Typically, a Punisher is going to yell, point. They're going to be very addicted to being right. It's all about my way or the highway, right? They're going to be stuck in the black and the white. There is no gray for a Punisher, right? It's either the right way or the wrong way. There's a lot of conditional statements coming from a Punisher. If you do this, then I'll do that. If you do this, then this will happen. I'll give you this when you do that. Right? Setting up these transactional relationships, this give and take relationships. A lot of times a Punisher is going to hear back from those they're trying to punish. I don't care, or I don't know, or whatever, or you don't like me, or you're only saying this because you didn't like my brother, and you didn't like my sister, and so now you don't like me either, right? Those are the kind of things you typically would be hearing back if you're assuming this punishing role. So let's watch this quick little clip of a great example of a Punisher from one of my favorite movies and see if you hear the Punisher coming out. And I also want you to pay attention to the reactions this Punisher is getting from those that he's trying to punish, both the one he's directly trying to punish as well as the others around that are observing this Punisher in his position.
Come on, Bender, don't screw around. I mean, that's, it doesn't belong to us. It's something to be toyed with.
Why is that door closed? Why is that door closed?
How are we supposed to know? We're not supposed to move, right?
Why? Who closed that door?
I think a screw fell out of it.
Give me that screw.
I don't have it.
You want me to yank you out of that seat and shake it out of you?
I don't have it. Screws fall out all the time. The world's an imperfect place.
Give it to me, Bender. You're not fooling anybody, Bender. The next screw that falls out is gonna be you.
Eat my shorts.
What was that?
Eat my shorts.
You just bought yourself another Saturday, mister.
Crushed.
You just bought one more right there.
Well, I'm free the Saturday after that. Beyond that, I'm gonna have to check my calendar.
Good, because it's gonna be filled. We'll keep going. You want another one? Say the word, just say the word. Instead of going to prison, you'll come here. Are you through?
No.
I'm doing society a favor.
So?
That's another one right now. I've got you for the rest of your natural born life if you don't watch your step. You want another one?
Yes.
You got it. You got another one right there. That's another one, pal. You through?
Not even close, bud.
Good. You got one more right there.
You really think I give a shit?
Another.
So you see in that the way everyone else is reacting, as well as the way the direct person that is being punished is reacting. And that's the typical behavior you would get, right? A rebel, a blamer, someone that's trying to just get the last word in, and no matter how high you try to count that punishment, they just keep going higher and higher, right? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. And eventually the person just doesn't care anymore. They just start to repeat the offense. They just start to do whatever they want to do. They also, deep down inside, they gain what's called a failure identity. They start to think of themselves as a failure, and they start to act just like a failure, as opposed to thinking of themselves as somebody that can be successful and acting successful. They start to do everything they can to make sure everyone knows that they are a failure. Obviously, you can probably imagine in this situation, the cortisol is being hijacked. It's increasing the amygdala. The chance that the amygdala is just going to take over, and it's going to be a fight or flight situation, as you kind of started to see in this clip. They're getting louder and louder and just trying to kind of overstep one another. There's not a lot of problem solving. It's basically just trying to fight, flight, freeze, or sometimes you might see somebody that's been punished just appease. They just say, yeah, whatever. And they just start smiling and nodding and yeah, sure, whatever. Okay. So I want you to think about these examples, not just teacher to a student, but also if you as a leader, assume one of these positions with other adults in the building, you're going to get some of the same sort of legacy, right? The same thing. You're going to get somebody that's a rebel, that's blaming, that's abusing, that's repeatedly offending. Rather it's the teacher that shows up late every day to the school, or it's the student that refuses to do what the teacher is asking. Typically, this punisher position is going to get certain behaviors from those that they're trying to punish. So now let's move on to the next one of my favorites, that is the guilter position. The guilter is probably somebody that's going to be preachy, that's going to be pretty sarcastic, that's going to try to use sarcasm to get done what they want to get done. They're going to be saying should a lot. You're going to hear a lot of, you should have done this better. You should have known better. If you would have done this, I would have been a lot happier person. But what you're doing right now is just making me so mad. I'm so sad. I'm so angry. Usually what you'll get back from somebody that's giving a guilt trip is, oh, I'm sorry. Or you'll hear, oh, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Or you'll hear, nope, not my fault. Right? So in this situation, when I think of a guilter, I think of my mother. And you'll see bacon and eggs on this plate. And you might be wondering, what in the world does this have to do with being a guilter? Well, my mom was the worst guilter, and I was raised by one. And she would actually get up every morning and cook me a very nice breakfast. And she would put me on the bus. And me, being the little jerk that I could be sometimes, would not behave on the bus. And when I would get home, I would get exactly like I just described, the worst guilt trips possible. I can't believe that I woke up this morning and I cooked you fresh eggs and cooked you fresh bacon, and you would get on the bus 5 minutes after eating this delicious breakfast and embarrass me just like that. And you know, Charlie, when you get on that bus and you embarrass me, you're not just embarrassing me, you're embarrassing my family, you're embarrassing our family name. I mean, there's just so much damage you're doing to the entire universe by getting on this bus and acting this way, right? So I would get that guilt trip. I don't know if you guys are familiar or heard any kind of similar guilt trip from a mom or dad or sibling throughout your life. But what we've learned is through this research that the guilter just creates basically somebody that's going to deny and hide and lie and stay away from the guilt trip. And I was this person. I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in a neighborhood and I knew if I'd misbehaved on the school bus, when I got home, I was going to go straight to my neighbor's house. I wasn't even going to go home. I was going to avoid my mom at all costs. I was going to stay away from her until the sun had gone down. She was getting ready for bed, and then I would sneak in the back door, go straight to my bedroom, and hope I could just stay away from her altogether. If she did catch me on the way in the door, I would come up with some sort of lie. Oh, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. Well, Charlie, there's only one kid that looks like you on the entire school bus. So who else could it have been? You're on a camera. They got you caught on camera. We do all the things as we can to just try to stay away from the situation. Eventually, somebody that's been guilted too much, it's going to create a very low self-esteem of that person. They feel like they're always having to apologize. They're always having to say they're sorry. They're always making everybody else's life worse because of their actions. And it starts to, again, create that failure identity and that low self-esteem in those people. Similar impact on the brain, not surprising. Cortisol increase, amygdala hijack, fight, flight, freeze, or appease, and all those survival safety networks get engaged. So we definitely want to avoid the punisher. We want to avoid the guilter. Both of those are probably not surprising to you that they make a negative impact. But one that when I learned this research was a little surprising to me is this idea of being a buddy and being the rescuer and being the enabler. Because I thought if a kid came to me with a problem, or if a teacher, when I was a principal, came to me with a problem, it was my job to help him solve the problem. It was my job to fix it for him. I remember my starting guard one time came to me because he was failing his computer science class. And it was right before a very important game that we were getting ready to go into that might win us the conference championship. So, of course, what did I do? Oh, you're failing your computer science class? Let me go talk to the computer science teacher. Let me see if I can get this worked out. Let me see if I can figure out what assignments you're missing, right? Or if I had that teacher that wasn't turning her grades in, even though I'd asked her 5 times to turn her grades in, instead of working with her to help her figure out how to get her grades in, I would just go find somebody else. Oh, let me go see if I can find somebody else to fix this problem for you. Let me see if I can get our data manager to help you put those grades in, right? And of course, those sound like helpful things. Those sound like very nice things when you're doing that. So you hear these people saying stuff like, I'll do it for you. Let me see if I can take care of this for you. But then what you hear back is, oh yeah, I can't do it. And then every now and then, when you finally tell the person you can't help them, that you don't have the time, that you can't fix the problem for you. Oh, I thought you were my friend. I thought you would help me get through this. Now you just don't care about me anymore. Or did I make you mad? Like, why aren't you helping me fix all my problems? Okay, so let's watch a quick little example of the extreme version of a buddy or rescuer from, again, one of my favorite little video clips here. Go ahead, Katie.
Just want you to know, if you need anything, don't be shy, okay? There are no rules in this house. I'm not like a regular mom. I'm a cool mom. Right, Regina?
Please stop talking.
Okay. I'm gonna make you girls a hump day treat.
So you've maybe seen that movie and seen the cool mom trying to get all the mean girls, all the cool stuff, and just enabling her daughter, which if you go on with that clip, she goes into her room and we see that she's actually taking over her parents' room and she's basically just a spoiled brat. So that's not what we're wanting when we are enabling other, when we're getting people to that role. And normally what you see in the legacy, can you go back one, Katie? Or did it skip a slide? There should be a slide with a rescuer. Is there one that has a legacy on there? If not, I can just talk through it. Okay, so the legacy that you normally see with the buddy, rescuer, and enabler is just a repeat offender, right? Somebody's just going to keep doing it over and over again. And they're not ever going to find a way to solve their own problems. Typically, after a while, they're going to become very apathetic. They're going to become very lazy. They're not really going to worry about doing anything on their own. They're just going to wait on somebody else to do it for them. So again, try our best when we are leading other people to avoid the buddy position, to avoid the punisher position, and to avoid the guilter position. Okay, so now we're going to stop the bad news and move more into the positions that aren't as big of an issue, and that is the manager. Okay, the manager, again, is a position that is not going to have any negative outcomes, but it may not get the most out of your people. A manager is going to do a lot of counting, a lot of measuring. There's going to be a whole lot of rules and policies and procedures in place. And typically the manager is going to stick to those policies and procedures and rules and routines. They're going to say, 3 strikes and you're out. They're going to clip the little clip up the chart, clip the little clip down the chart. A lot of us have used Class Dojo, and you mark when the kids are doing it right. You mark when they're not doing it right. You gain points when you're doing it right, and those points can be cashed in for different things. These are examples of manager. The biggest difference between a manager and a punisher is a manager has actually established some rules. They've actually got procedures in place. They've got consequences in place. They've developed policies, and they're going to consistently stick within those rules, right? Go ahead and clip to the next one. So we have a picture of Dojo here because we think it's probably one of the more widespread examples of manager. And again, there's nothing wrong with Dojo. It's not going to do any damage, but it does kind of limit, because what we've found is if we've got a expectation that maybe is not listed on Dojo, or we've got a rule that we're not measuring, or we've got a behavior that maybe is a new behavior that we haven't been able to upload into the system yet, the kids aren't going to be responsive, right? We're not going to be getting what we want from them in a full way, just like with teachers. We write a nice handbook. We have a staff manual. We've got all of our, if this happens, that happens listed out in our manual. And then something new happens, like, a global pandemic or something that changes the whole way we do work together as a group. And the manager role all of a sudden is not as impactful. It's not as effective because there are things happening around us that we haven't developed a policy or a procedure or a way of counting and measuring to make sure everybody's doing it. So go ahead to the next one, Katie. So a lot of times the legacy that you leave behind, one, you'll start hearing a lot of people saying, well, that's not fair. He showed up for work three days late, and the principal didn't say anything to them when he showed up late. And then all of a sudden I show up late one time and they say something to me. Why didn't he get in trouble? Why did I get in trouble? Right? You start hearing some of this comparison stuff going on. One kid comparing to another kid, or one staff member comparing themselves to another staff member. You get very compliant people, which doesn't sound like a horrible idea to have a bunch of compliant rule following people, right? But again, what happens when we need a new innovation? What happens when we need some creativity? What happens when a pandemic comes out and now we've got to find new creative ways to do it? If we're used to being in a very managerial culture, then we have trouble thinking outside the box. We have trouble coming up with new solutions. Or maybe you've got a new set of students that are bringing different challenges to the table that they haven't brought to the table before. If all we have is very compliant, complicit people, we can run into some roadblocks with really coming up with high level solutions for engaging new types of students. The other downside is a lot of times in the manager role, you get people that are going to go just to the bar that you've set, and that's as far as they're going to go, right? You're not going to be able to get people to jump over the bar. They're just going to be asking, okay, where's the bar? All right, I'm going to reach the bar, and that's it. I'm going to work till 4 o'clock because that's what I was told to do. And I'm going to clock out and I'm going to go home. I'm going to show up at 8. I'm going to leave at 4. I'm going to go home. And sometimes that kind of workmanship is not exactly what we need in a school building, right? We need people to go above and beyond what's being asked. So just meeting the bar sometimes is not quite enough. But we do see that at least because we've set rules, we've set policies, we've set procedures, we do see that the brain is at least not in like fear mode. At least our brain is upregulating, and there is some oxytocin and positive energy flowing in the brain because we've at least created a safe environment, a stable environment when we're in that manager role. However, what we really want to push ourselves towards is a facilitator. The facilitator we've seen through research is going to get that highest level of engagement. It's going to get that highest level of creativity, that highest level of innovation. And in this role, you're asking a lot of questions. You're doing a lot of listening. You're doing a lot of collaborative decision making, not a lot of just my way or the highway. You're asking questions like, what do we believe as an organization? What do we value as an organization? Who do we want to be as an organization? And in a facilitator role, you hear a lot of encouraging language, a lot of strengthening of each other, a lot of assuming the best intent out of people, even when they're not going the way we want them to go. We're still assuming the best. And again, it really does ignite that creativity and that collaboration. Next, Katie. So this is again an example of a video clip of a teacher, again, working with students that we thought was a pretty decent example of a facilitator.
Who is it that I aspire to be? That is the question that we should be asking ourselves all the time. What kind of person am I? So this is what we're gonna do. Everyone's gonna come up with 2 things that they think everybody else should know about them, all right? I'll go first. Number 1, I used to work on Wall Street for a long time. And 2, I left Wall Street to pursue my dream and teach. Boom, who's next? Yes.
Julian Albans, and I think it's cool how you're pursuing your dream.
Thank you very much, Julian. Let's hear your 2 things.
Okay. 1, I just got Battleground Mystic on my Wii, and it's totally awesome. And number 2, we got a ping pong table this summer.
Amazing. Any questions for Julian? Yes.
Is Battleground Mystic multiplayer or single player?
That's not those kind of questions. Okay.
Hi, my name's August Pullman, Augie, and I have a sister named Bia and a dog named Daisy. I love Star Wars, and I just said 3 things. Yeah, sorry.
That sounds like a bonus to me. 3 things. Thank you very much, Augie. That was perfect. Who's next?
Oh.
All right, so obviously that's an ideal classroom. Maybe we'd all want to have going throughout of our building. That teacher was definitely assuming the facilitator role, and you can maybe picture yourself leading a staff meeting in that same sort of facilitator role. It's interesting to note the reactions you get not only from the people that the facilitator is directly talking to, but the reactions you get around from all the other people that are sitting around and observing that type of position from the facilitator. Typically creates that kind of environment where it's safe. Even the student Augie, who was not comfortable probably speaking in front of all of those students, started to get this sense of safety and ability to really engage and share out. Even the goofy kid that asked the question that had nothing to do with the topic at all, right? Still, he had a very safe reaction from his facilitator teacher so that they could continue to create that kind of environment they wanted to create. So how do we move into the facilitator as a leader? What is the big difference of moving from those initial 4 positions of control and leadership into that facilitator role? This chart here just kind of gives you a summary. And again, this is in your learning guide, so you can reference it. How you kind of move from those first 3 positions into the manager, and then ultimately, hopefully, into that facilitator. And you see going up and down the column there, to move into that manager role, like we talked about, you really need the policies, procedures, routines established. Without those established routines, there's no way really to move into the manager role. In the same way, there's no way to move into that facilitator role without those trusting relationships. And you heard that teacher talking and asking kids to share a couple examples about themselves. That was an attempt to build those trusting relationships, right? So that's the first step. There's no way to move into facilitator role without intentionally working on trust and intentionally working on the relationships with those that you're leading. Ultimately, while you're in that role, you start to get more intrinsically motivated people. You start to get people that can self-regulate, just like Augie did in the video. He said, "Oh, sorry, I shared 3 packs instead of 2," right? That's an example of self-regulation. That's what you get when you're in that facilitator role. You get long-term fixes instead of just fixing the short term, putting out the first fire, putting out the first problem. So facilitator role is obviously a great place to be. Trusting relationships is a big thing that gets you there. There is another piece that gets you there that I want to talk about briefly, and that is operating as a group from a values level. If you can go to the next slide, Katie. Oh, shoot. Do we do the reflection first? Did I do it out of order?
It's all you pick. We're good. Keep going.
Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and jump into actually go back to the reflection. Let's take a second and let them reflect before I go into this little step. So quickly throw that chart back up there again, Katie. All right. So as you think about these roles and you think about yourself as a leader and as an individual, and it's okay. Like I said, I was the buddy rescuer a lot. And I know that I've been a guilter. I know I've been a punisher. I've assumed all 3 of these roles. But as you think about yourself, do a little bit of reflection around these 3 questions. Okay, now you can go to the next slide. All right. What position do you most often find yourself in? What positions do you recognize the teachers in your school taking most often? And how could you move towards becoming more of a facilitator yourself as a leader, as well as creating that example for your teachers so that they could move more into that facilitator role? So take just a couple minutes and reflect on all this information I've shared with these 3 questions. We'll just put a couple minutes on the clock and have some reflection time. All right, take about 30 more seconds and just wrap up whatever thought you're on. Again, this is all in your learning guide, so you can go back and reflect on it a little bit more if you want, but take about 20 more seconds and wrap up your current thought. All right, so now that I'll dive a little bit into the one concrete takeaway I wanted to share, in addition to building those trusting relationships, which is this idea of operating from a values level within your organization. We're going to dive deeper into this when we have our next session, and this is called the levels of perception, which is again a piece of the science on human motivation and how human beings operate. But the point is, basically, we operate on a program and sensory level, but humans also operate on a values level, on a principles level. We operate on what we are doing every day, and we also operate on who we want to be every day. And that probably makes sense to you, right? You have values as a human, and those values are important to you. You also have ways that you do things, and that's also important to you. But working as an organization from a values level and building an organization from a level where you're talking about who do you want to be, what are our beliefs, what are our goals, what is our ultimate purpose as an organization, building things from that higher principles and values level and working from there can put you in that facilitator position. So how do you do that? Well, we have a process called building a This Is Us covenant. And we call it a This Is Us covenant. You can call it an operating agreement. You can call it a values statement. You can call it a purpose statement. There's a lot of other ways, other ways you can call it. But the This Is Us covenant really is a good description for what it is. And it's a process where you collectively build the values that you have as an organization. You look at your individual values, and then you collectively combine those individual values into one collective set of who you want to be as an organization as you work together to accomplish the goals you're wanting to accomplish. After you have the values, you can start to define what those values look like, what they sound like, how we're going to act as we have staff meetings together, how we're going to act as we do parent engagement, how we're going to act as we do all the things that we do. But the first step is building those collective values together and then deciding together how we're going to hold each other accountable for these co-created values. And then as the leader, you just become basically the facilitator of those values. You become the keeper of this covenant. And assuming that position as the keeper of the covenant puts you in a place as the facilitator. Next slide. This explicit agreement really helps create a bond. It creates that collective where we can really identify how we're going to reach these goals together. And it gives you kind of a compass that you can pull everybody back to, as opposed to just being a dictator and saying my way or the highway, or this is the rule. It's more of a values-based statement. I had a story I was going to share, but I want to make sure I give Katie enough time. So I'll wait and share my story next time we see each other around building this values-based statement as an organization. So that's my little teaser to make sure you come next time.
Thanks, Charlie. All right, so that pushes us into our tool. So as we learn about all these great things, the 5 positions of control and trying to move towards being that facilitator, we want to give you some tangible skills and steps, strategies, if you will, a framework of how to help move us forward into that. And so one way that we're going to do that is through open to learning conversations. And open to learning conversations are a great way to have some hard conversations that we have to have on a very regular basis. But before we jump into it, I want you guys to take just a few minutes and kind of do a self-assessment. Be reflective. You're going to see here in a minute a bunch of questions flash up on the screen. We're going to go through them fairly quickly. But on page 7 of your learning guide, there's a chart here that has all of them listed as well. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to go through them and rate yourself on those afterwards. But right now, just kind of listen to the questions as we go to them and think about how your staff, how your students would answer these questions in relation to you. So 1, members of my staff know I value their ideas. I listen carefully to concerns from my staff. When my staff has concerns, I ask questions because I see it as vital to understand where the concerns are rooted. I spend time understanding the professional goals of my staff members. My staff would say I care about their personal lives. I address staff who undermine school improvement efforts in a respectful and positive manner. I apply what I know about learning and learners to my daily work as a school leader. My busy schedule does not get in the way of following through on school priorities and doing what I say I will do. My staff would say I resolve difficult conflicts effectively. I can lead my staff to change, asking them to try new approaches because of the trusting relationships we have with them, or I have with them, I'm sorry. And my staff would describe me as a strong communicator. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 3 minutes, so not super long, but jump to your learning guide, make a copy if you want to actually make some notes on it, and rate yourself. 1, I never do this. 2, I do this sometimes. 3, often, and 4, always. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes, and then I'm going to pull us back together. And nobody else is going to see this, so be honest, it's just for you, just an internal reflection. About 1 more minute. Okay, keep that in mind as we go through this open to learning conversation and kind of how you rated yourself. And as we go through this and we gain an understanding of these open to learning conversations, I just want you to keep that self-reflection in the back of your mind. And we're going to look back to it at the end of this session. But there's no one better than Vivian Robinson than to describe open to learning conversation. So my video clip doesn't quite deserve popcorn like Charlie's did, but it's still very informational and fabulous. So, and we're going to follow up with Vivian Robinson real fast.
What is open to learning conversations?
It's a theory and practice of interpersonal effectiveness, which has 3 values at its heart, and that is that in conversations with others, particularly around important issues, we should be respectful of others and ourselves, because leaders have agendas, but they should also be respectful of the agendas and interests of others. We should be, leaders are powerful people in schools. They control a lot of people's lives, and in terms of students in particular, and to some extent teachers as well. And so that control needs to be shared and developed respectfully, but it also means that their decisions have a lot of consequences for others, so they need to be good decisions. So the thinking of leaders and the thinking of teachers that goes into those decisions needs to have passed the test of validity. So the second value is truth seeking, which I call maximizing valid information, and this is based on the work of Ardress and Schoen. And it doesn't mean that we have to have hard data on every decision. It means that our assumptions, our beliefs that we bring to these decisions, to these meetings, to these conversations, we are prepared to have them challenged and checked, and we indeed promote that. So that even if we all agree that we should purchase this resource, that we're willing to ask ourselves, what have we missed? What might make us, how might this be a bad decision? Why are we preferring this resource over that resource? That's about promoting, seeking to increase the validity of our thinking about how to spend the money. And the third value is in promoting internal commitment, so that people who come to a decision or take action together, or single individually, believe that they're doing the right thing for the right reasons. They're not doing it because the leader or the municipality required them to do it. They're doing it because they're passionate about it. They believe it's the right thing. It's connected to important educational values. Now, that's all an espousal that everybody buys into quite readily on the whole. I don't think I've met any leader that doesn't like that. The challenge is behaving consistently with it. And that's what the Open to Learning workshops and training is about, and the research that we're doing that supports it as well, is helping leaders in all of their interactions enact those 3 values.
Okay. Oh, pushing forward. So the idea of this open to learning conversation, you can see it aligns really well with being a facilitator and guiding those conversations. And how do we find this framework? This framework says it provides us with a really systematic way to approach difficult conversations. And as I've used this over and over throughout my experiences, I've started using it in difficult situations and non-difficult situations, because it's such a great way to create a sense of relational trust with our teachers and with our students, and clarity about what's going on. And there's 7 main steps as we go through this process and through this framework. And the first one is stating our point of view. And this is where you as the leader or teacher state your point of view. But it's important as we state that point of view, we know in our minds that there are tons of other points of view. Everybody else in the situation has a different point of view, and our point of view, it may not be the right point of view. In my mind, I feel like it is right now, but I'm open to being wrong because I'm going to hear it. If we go into these conversations closed off and not willing to learn, then it's not really an open to learning conversation, right? It's right there in the title. Once we state our point of view, we state why we think what it is. We state that evidence behind it, what we observed, and it's very factual information to support our point of view. And then once we've done that, then we turn it over and we kind of inquire. We invite the other party to state their point of view, what they're thinking and why they're thinking the way that they think. And once we hear all of that and we internalize it, it's time for us to paraphrase, repeat back to them. What I hear you saying is, so you feel this way, is that correct? And you're doing this in a very genuine manner. You're not trying to belittle them. We're not trying to catch you. We're not trying to be like, oh, you said this, but I feel like you're meaning this, right? It's not one of those get you gotcha things. It's really genuinely making sure you understand their point of view and why they think what they're thinking. And then once we have that, we can ask some critical questions. We can really seek to understand and evaluate. Ask them some questions about why they're thinking the way that they're thinking, right? Ask them challenging questions that might be some barriers that get in the way of what they're thinking that they may not have thought about. But it's a time to really ask some intentional questions. And through that, hopefully together, you'll then come to a common ground, a best place where you can both agree upon something and where you're going to move forward to go next. And from there, you can make a plan. What are our next steps to move forward, and how are we going to move forward? And as we go through all of this, it ties back to those 3 values that Vivian Robinson talked about. Having respect for yourself and others, having valid information, and having that internal commitment. And we're able to get to that through those 7 steps within the open to learning conversations. Now, one great activity that we have that's in the learning guide that you'll see, it'll walk you through all of these steps, and you can see it in here on page 9. So as you go forward and you're thinking about a hard conversation that you may be having in the future, jump back here to this learning guide and go through this. It's got all 7 steps here on the left-hand side, kind of some ideas about what the leader might say, and it gives you an area to actually script out what you're going to say and what questions you're going to ask during that conversation. So we call it a scenario think aloud, but we wanted to give you some tangible tools that you can use as you move forward in implementing this into your process. And in true fashion, we would never leave you without giving you some time to think about what it is you learned today, right? And there's a spot in your note-taking template on page 13 if you want to take some notes. But just spend some time after we log off today thinking about what's something that you learned today that surprised you. Maybe what's one key takeaway that you want to remember, right? How do you want to prioritize it when it comes to communicating with your teacher? And what's one thing that might stretch you out of your comfort zone and push you along as a school leader towards that facilitator role as you move forward into doing these things? And as always, as you're going through these things, Charlie and I are always here to help. So if you have questions, you want a thought partner, you want help maybe doing the This Is Us covenant, we are here to help every step of the way. So you just reach out to us and we will be there to help you guys all along the way. But don't forget to come back and join us for our Power of Self-Evaluation on May 13th, because I promise you this will be the best one that we've had yet. It's fantastic. And with that, I will leave you with our feedback because we do love your feedback. So please do take some time to share some feedback. And Marie, with 1 minute to spare, I'm going to pass it back to you.
That was very smooth. Well done. Well, thank you so much. And we're so glad that everyone could join us today. Please make sure you give your feedback to our partners at EdDirection, and then have a great rest of the day. We will see you next month.